Welcome to Therapist Take. We're going to talk about the healing power of nature, so don't go anywhere. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Josh.
How are you today?
Good. How are you? Running
Good.
around?
We're always laughing because, it's like super stressful.
Yeah,
and
I
then
know.
we're like, breathe.
Yeah, right.
Do
We're
you do
here
breathing?
now.
Do you do box breathing?
Only when necessary.
When is that?
What a
Podcast.
podcast, youth baseball, things like that.
Everybody should be doing box breathing
I know.
in baseball.
Oh, yes.
I learned box breathing when I was in grad school, and I was working out during the middle of the day and having to go back to work, and I was sweating, and I learned that it helps you lower your heart rate. So I would do it while I was getting, in between being done with the workout and coming back to work. I do it to kind of get my heart rate down. I don't know if it really worked.
Well, did you feel less?
I don't think I stopped sweating as much, but I felt better.
I think it's good.
I felt better about it.
I felt better about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think maybe that means you sweat. The sweat doesn't last as long because I started sweating because I was nervous about me being sweaty.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
You
so,
stopped the cycle of that. Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know. But anyways, we have a special episode because we have a special guest.
Yep.
One of our favorite people in the world, and we're going to talk and introduce her in just a second. But before we do that, just want to make sure everybody just go over the housekeeping things that I do every episode, which is to just, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. That really helps. Hit the like button. Again, this is all about pleasing the algorithms. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, then just take a second and go and give us that 5-star review. Write something nice if you want to. We'll really appreciate it. And then don't forget to check out the show notes or the description of the video on the re-download. So what we do is I will take the live version, which would be considered like a rough cut, and then edit it up. And then in the version we re-upload, we put a lot of resources in that version. So make sure you check out the show notes so you can click on the links and all the different resources that we put in there. So. Okay, so let's talk about the episode.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the healing power of nature. And to kind of do the episode breakdown, the first thing we're going to do is just kind of cover the science behind, or the science that kind of links nature and mental health.
Yep.
We're going to talk about nature as a tool for healing and growing, and then reconnecting, what it's like to reconnect with nature during a digital world. I'm really interested in that part of the discussion. And the last thing I will hit on, if we have time, is any relational benefits to this. So, and we have a really special guest, a longtime friend, very special friend, because Dr. Roberts, I think even before she was Dr. Roberts, kind of helped us with get our practice going and doing meeting with her a lot. And then she's been a big supporter of the work that we do at Family Solutions. And so we're also just a big fan of hers. So I'm just going to read her bio directly, and then I'll bring her on camera. So Dr. Kelly Roberts serves as the chair of graduate programs in human sciences and the director of marriage and family therapy program at Oklahoma Christian University. As an associate professor of psychology and family science, she has been instrumental in developing and leading the marriage and family therapy graduate program at OC. With over 2 decades of experience in clinical practice, research, teaching, and policy advocacy, Dr. Roberts is a licensed marriage and family therapist and an approved supervisor with the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. Her academic journey includes a Master's of Science in Family Relations and Child Development with the LMFT specialization, and a PhD in Human Sciences with a focus on family policy. Both of those degrees are from Oklahoma State University. Dr. Roberts has held various leadership roles, including serving as the president and legislative liaison of the Oklahoma Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. She currently contributes as a family policy and advocacy leader for the AAMFT's Family Therapist in Medical Setting Interest Network, and is a member of the AAMFT Judicial Committee. Her professional affiliations extend to the National Council of Family Relations, the Society of Teachers of Family Medicine, and the Society of Clinical Trials. In recognition of her significant contributions to the field, Dr. Roberts was recently inducted into the Oklahoma State University's College of Education and Human Sciences Hall of Fame. Ta-da. Beyond her professional endeavors, Dr. Roberts has been married for coming up on 40 years, and she has 2 daughters. So, without further ado, welcome Dr. Kelly Roberts.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here. You're giving me some applause noise, Tom?
Yeah, I know you
Yeah, we don't have the button board
Okay.
yet where we
Yeah,
can do that on our
okay.
podcast.
You have
So,
to manufacture it.
yeah.
I know.
Is it weird hearing your resume like that? Or,
It is
all that
because I was
stuff?
thinking there's already a few updates we need to tweak next time. But
oh yeah. Well, what do we need to update?
well, I recently trained in and have transferred the leadership of the program so that I can work on a research. And so
Yeah.
I was just thinking that just happened. I didn't even think about looking up
Yeah.
there at the top piece of it, but I'm working really hard on grants growing assistantships, and I need to really focus
Oh.
hard on getting as many scholarships as we can so we can be competitive and get support because, you know, going to school is expensive. So
Yeah, of
there's
course.
that, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got. I bet you there's things we left off here.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you
Oh,
think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
I have to do an equipment check real quickly.
right.
Hannah, is her mic in the camera view? It looks like the bar raised up a little bit. It's good? Oh, we can see her face then. I forgot who it was we did an episode with. I think it was one of David Otwell's episodes where the camera's like,
Right
the
on
mic's
the
right in his
microphone.
face, so you can't even
Oh.
see he's like, do you remember, what was the guy's name on Home Improvement that was always looking over the
Fence.
fence and you never
Yeah.
saw the bottom
Fence,
half of his
yeah.
The
face?
neighbor.
The
I
neighbor.
I can't remember his
who it
name
was.
now.
I can't either. He wore a hat. Yeah.
We're going to have to rely on your notes because I dropped mine.
Okay. Well, it's right there, too.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, thanks for being here today.
I'm so glad. Just looking
Yeah.
at you guys, I'm feeling happy.
I know.
I
I'm
know.
so I'm happy you're here, and I really
Yeah.
am happy we're talking about this.
Thanks.
So, your old student who works here now, Jamie,
Yes.
she and I had a conversation this morning about you.
You did.
And I was like, because she was like, when she heard you were coming, she's like, oh, I got to see Kelly. And I'm like, of course. I mean, and I was like, she has that impact on everybody. And I was like, but like, realistically, we all have people in our lives or have encountered people that don't like us. And I was like, so that means there are people in this world that don't like Kelly Roberts.
Yeah,
And
probably
I'm like,
so.
what is wrong with those people?
I can't imagine it.
We do our best and we just let them be, I guess.
I
you
guess
know.
so. I
It's like,
know.
it just blows my mind. I was like, that can't be.
No.
I felt about my grandfather like that. I was like, how would anybody have a problem with this man? Like,
That's
I
awesome.
still feel like that about him.
Well, that's sweet.
And I'm going to stay that way, Carrie.
I know you are. You should. That sounds
I'm
lovely.
not changing it. Right. But anyways, so this episode came about because I can't remember. I posted something. I think I posted a picture on Facebook, and you commented on it about something related to nature being a very healing power for mental health. I was like, oh, that sounds like a good podcast. And you're like, let's do it.
I did. I was so excited about it. There's so much research, and it's something that we don't really spend that much time, depending on what our discipline is as therapists, but it's in everyone's life, and there are benefits for everyone. And so I'm really ready to unpack this. Thank you for doing this
Yeah.
topic today.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool. Well, let's start out with just jumping right in.
Yeah, let's start about the science.
Yeah, this will be Carrie's favorite one, I think. Out of the four, which
Oh,
one?
I like all of them.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, sorry.
But you are kind of, a bit of a nerd for the research.
I like it.
Right? Which is good. We need the research nerds in the world, right? And we need the media nerds. Like me.
We
So,
do.
I don't know. I think I'm not as important in that sense in terms of the vitality of the
No,
world. But,
Don't diminish, Josh.
so tell us a little bit about this connection. Well, tell us a little bit what you mean, or what you were meaning, like when I originally made that post, and kind of what you thought of about that nature can be really healing, like what was going on in your head at that time. If you can recall I don't even remember which one it was. I just remember it was like a sunset or something that I posted.
Yeah. Well, originally, what I was thinking about when I saw your post was I was actually thinking about an OSU professor. You know, they have the School of Leisure Studies there, which is really connected to parks and recreation and outdoor management and some other things. But leisure is very much connected to folks who do ropes courses. And so there's a lot of branches. And I remember sitting with him and his wife one time, and he said, you know, the Greek word for school is squala. And what that word actually meant was leisure. And what it meant was taking a breath. They taught outside. It was actually enriching just to grow and to learn. But we connect that with the growing and learning through nature. And that root made me start looking at all of the research related to well-being, how it is that nature just lends itself as this big outdoor hospital for us, you know, and so I've just got piles, and so I'm ready to pop in there anytime.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think of like, you know, like one of the kind of like how Freud was treated, you know, and there's still there was a lot of problems with Freud's work, but he is like the, you know, kind of pioneered a lot of things. But then, you know, after, you know, years or decades later, it's like everybody kind of circles back around. It's like, hey, there might have been more. You might have really been onto something that we kind of just dismissed. And I kind of wonder, like, if that's the same is true with, like, nature. Is like, everybody's like, oh, it's like hocus pocus or hippy dippy, you know, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, with the, maybe like some of the studies being done, like the circadian rhythm and things like we're like every cell in our body is basically in sync with the sun, you know,
Yes.
and it's like, you know, there might actually be something to that now. So, so here we are. So
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, I know.
You know, nature is quite amazing. I was just reading last night the biography of a gentleman who helped us discover about the circadian rhythm and how good sun is for us.
Right.
And that ritual of getting up and getting down and like forcing us almost to rest because it's dark. But he went in a cave for 180 days, and he completely lost his ability to be cognitively functioning. He started sleeping for 18 hours. He thought he was in there for 54 days, and he was actually in there for 90. It was completely disconcerting. And so that study then was the link to a lot of the things that we now see for the circadian rhythm and the healing piece of the sun. It's almost like we're little sunflowers. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, I love
Yeah.
sun.
Yeah.
So I've got research today about the benefits of water, both being in and looking at, fire, forests, there's gardening, and we're not talking one or two studies. All of these are scoping reviews, which means they take all of the research, they put them together.
Oh, okay.
And for each one of those topics, there's something beneficial. And so I'm ready to break it down any way we want to, but I'm telling you, nature is it, man. It's got it going on. So
Well, how does it work out in your mind, like in terms of the breakdown and how you?
So I think the biggest one that there's the most research for is related to being in nature where there's forested areas. And so there's a ton, like 8,000 studies related to foresting, walking through forests. You were talking about hippy dippy.
Right.
This is an area that's not just United States research, but it's like in Japanese research and Chinese research. And so the Japanese doctors actually write prescriptions for something they call Shinrin Yoka, which is a forest bath. And they'll say, I prescribe either 1 hour or 2 hours of forest bath for these reasons. And what it does is it's based on that we immerse ourselves in nature. It stimulates all of our senses. Okay, we're not kind of limiting our senses. We're just discovering all of the time. It's a pivotal role there in that science and that well-being for improving, and then the patterns, as well as the quiet, and even tuning into noises. You know, so much of our life, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, is like we adjust the volume levels. And so we have like this standard kind of rote level that we're either watching TV at or we're listening to the internet or something, but we hear tiny noises, we hear loud noises, we hear surprising noises. And so we as therapists know the benefits of just a small exercise called the five senses, you know, where we think about all of our senses and what am I hearing, what am I tasting, what am I seeing. But when you're in a forest, your senses are just woken up, And so, summarizing just the forest piece, it reduces your blood pressure. We were talking about heart rate a while ago. Reduces your heart rate. It improves anxiety. It improves depression, suicidality. All of those things are just kind of, they start melting away while all the good things start growing up. Here's the interesting thing about the forest, and there's so much, I know we're going to have to limit. Trees are so cool because they have, their natural oils. We're all, we're a society that has a lot of natural oils, right?
Yeah.
But they actually do have these tiny little molecular natural oils. They're called phytosides. And the phytonsides, they actually release cortisol. So we will be walking through, and especially like the pine trees and the junipers and the cedars, those ones that are real pungent, where you can go up to one of those trees and kind of scratch the bark, and it just smells like cedar, or even some of them smell like butterscotch, which is crazy.
Oh,
But it's
that's
just
cool.
this big playground out there that they're feeding natural oils all of the time. So you're breathing in. And in forests, there's elevated levels of oxygen because there's so much greenery.
Sure,
So you're getting these huge
Oh, yeah,
doses of
yeah.
O2, which
Yeah.
also improve. So that's just one little piece.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I'm so
cool.
excited about
Yeah.
it.
I grew up in Southwest Oklahoma. I don't feel like we had much oxygen.
Didn't
Just
have a lot of
farmland,
forest.
as far
Yeah.
as I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can
The-
feel it. I can smell the things you're talking about. I can feel the textures under my fingers as you say that, right? Because I always, whenever I'm always touching, whenever, like I was in a different climate last week and I just kept touching all the flora and fauna. I just wanted to see and feel, right?
Yes.
So inviting for
Yes,
that.
it is. There's always a new texture to discover out there.
Yes.
I think most people can relate to the experience of being out in nature and just being relaxing and but I think most people have historically attributed that to just go, and so you get out in nature and I'm just able to get away from the world. But kind of like what you're saying is that that's not a placebo effect of any kind. Like might actually be some real
Yeah.
benefits from what nature's producing out there that you're absorbing, whether it's through breath or through touch or exposure from the sun or whatever. That's actually, you might feel better because you're where you are.
That's right.
And
The
so-
environment influences you into a mindfulness state without having to choose, I'm going to go do mindfulness.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it slows you down,
Mm-hmm.
It gets you focused, and it helps just kind of calm everything. And so your body's already experiencing it. So naturally, it's kind of a natural occurring mindfulness exercise.
What's your favorite nature place? Like the forest, ocean, mountains?
I think it depends. I would say that I have an affinity for water and beaches, just listening and watching to the water.
Okay.
Tons of research related to that. But also up in the Northwest United States, you know how Oregon and Washington State have all those rainforests. They're just gorgeous. And there's ferns and there's things that we don't normally see here in our cross timbers or prairies. That just gets me. I could stay
Yeah.
there for a long time.
Yeah.
I could live there.
You could live there
What about you?
someday. Yeah, probably beach and water. The sound is
Yeah.
soothing. The color change. I love
Yeah.
watching it from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Documenting that, like feeling connected, feeling grateful.
Yeah.
That's where I want to be.
Yeah,
Right?
I wish I'd like to say something different, but when I think about ideally for me, like I always think of like tropical locations and things like that. But the next one would be like the idea of like going to Alaska, for example, and
Yes.
like just sounds like something. And what does it for me is the air, like
Yes.
the idea when I think about that type of air that you're breathing in, like it's a different type of refreshing. I feel like, anyways. So
There's a purity to,
Yeah.
especially I would say mountain airs
Yeah.
or, colder
Yeah.
airs. I remember my husband and I took a helicopter ride up to the Mendenhall Glacier, and we dog sledded across, and we saw mountains all around us. We're on the glacier, and that air I will never forget. And we know that cold also gives us adrenaline, which beds memories. And so if you're in cold, then you're going to just remember that, and it feels good. But I think it's also perspective, Josh. When you look at mountains, or you're up and you're something is so vast, boy, it makes the problems that you have around you seem a little smaller.
that's true.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about water then.
Okay. Yeah, let's
Since
talk about
we were
water.
talking
Sounds
about-
good.
So we're talking about the ocean and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I got all my cards. So I've got fire, I've got the gardening, I've got water.
Have to
Whew.
yeah, we
Okay.
gotta do gardening too.
So I think what I will say is I learned something while I was doing research, and I'll just drop this in and maybe we can move on to others. But I didn't know that there was something called wild swimming. And so wild swimming is where you're out in natural bodies of water and you're just swimming. You know, you're not having to like limited by the pool, or you're not trying to do the the breaststroke or like the backstroke or whatever you're trying. It's just being out there in water. And so wild swimming actually has a lot of therapeutic benefits
wow.
because you're just doing your thing. I think it's probably like dancing, only better. I don't know.
Yeah, it
So-
feels like being kids that just play in the
Just
water,
gonna
right?
play.
Yeah,
That's right.
It makes, I always think of like, there's a sea life out there watching humans do this going, oh gosh, like guys, come on. Like,
No, they're probably thinking, you finally discovered wild swimming. We've been
I know,
doing
that's
that.
exactly
Like,
what I
we're
mean. Like,
happier
that's the
than you.
annoyance
Yeah.
is like, we've been doing this for ages. Like, you guys are so far behind.
Well, so places with water are called blue spaces. So they're outdoor, but they also have water. And so those gazing at water has shown to have health benefits. Being in water, health benefits. Wild swimming, definitely health benefits, and that would be
Right.
more energizing benefits.
Yeah.
So we love water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I feel like there's, I don't know the mechanisms, but it feels like, I don't know if it's a perspective taking too around the vastness of water and being in water, the way it grounds you, but also you feel vast and how that modulates anxiety, right? Because anxiety
Yes.
in your body can often feel very limiting, right? The constriction. And
Right.
so to me, when you talk about those things, wild swimming, I mean, you're just, I can move here and I can move there. I'm not limited in any way. I can just see how that actually, the embodiment of that is available to you,
You
right?
bet. You can rest. You can just float for a
Yeah.
minute. You can do
Gravity's
what you want.
different.
Gravity is different.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, because I didn't realize like until like a lot of the space stuff's been going on and paying
Yeah.
attention to the to all that and just kind of reading up on different aspects of being in space that I've never thought about and like and I was reading something that said like you couldn't like raise a child in space, like they would not develop right because they don't have the gravity to help their bodies
Oh, wow.
do what it needs to do. Like they'd have their brains wouldn't develop right. And so, basically to go out into space, you got to be a full grown adult for the most part, and I was just thinking about like how water kind of just like gives us a break from, the trauma of gravity. Like it's constantly pulling us down.
It is.
That's right. And so instead of water's kind of holding you in
Yeah.
a lot of ways,
Yeah.
I guess in this really salty places, it's holding you more,
Yeah.
Right.
But it kind of helps your skin. I know we're going to talk a little bit about therapy, but I will say that my clinical supervisor told me a story once, and it reminded me of when I was looking at this research. She said, well, she lost someone very dear to her, and she was swimming out around Hawaii, and she said she went just as deep as she possibly could go, and she let her grief go, and she left it in the ocean. And she said, I swam back, and I just genuinely felt like I left something in the waters holding it for me. I don't have to. But I think that the washing over, there's just a lot of different therapeutic pieces about water.
Yeah,
So
very much.
Yeah.
I know.
Cool. Let's tackle gardening just real quickly, and
'Cause
then
it's
Yeah.
I know.
I
And
we
then
can move on. We're going to just like eat up all the time.
I know.
Real quickly, gardening is also one of the most researched areas. And I think I'll just summarize something that the Mayo Clinic really recommends. And what they love about the mental health piece of gardening is that it predicts cycles so that we have something that is predictable in our world. We know with sun, with water, with dirt, with seeds, we're going to see something, right? And if we don't, then what we're going to do is create some grit in ourselves, and we're going to try it better next time, right? And so there's a lot of metaphor related to gardening that's related to, mental health, but it actually increases exercise. People are down on their knees, they're hauling dirt, they're throwing bags of, fertilizer. It improves your diet because you're actually eating vegetables and you're like, I grew this, I have to eat it,
Yeah.
And one of the things that is most impactful, and we're going to talk about this too, is that gardening is one of the most prevalent things in nature that create relationships, because you want to share your food, you want to talk about what your garden is doing, and so you're reaching out and connecting because of what you're discovering and seeing.
Yeah.
And so the gardening is huge.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think about that too, like, that the mental piece of, like, the comforting piece of eating something you're growing, right? I mean, I think that makes sense, like, from an evolutionary perspective of, like, if I have the ability to grow my food, that's going to hopefully make me feel a little bit better about tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? Like, that I'm going to actually
Yeah.
survive this world, or I'm
Yes.
equipped,
Yes.
and so that's a good point.
It tastes better when you grow
Right.
it yourself too, don't you think?
Yeah.
I know.
Of course.
I know
It
so.
absolutely does taste better, 100%.
Yep.
The last area is fire, and it's pretty much just more of what we have already said, but there's crackles and pops and the smell of smoke and the lighting. The light differences are actually therapeutic for our brain because we're not getting this consistent piece. You guys know that when there's a holiday and you see a fireplace, it feels better.
It
and
does,
it's
yeah.
warm. I think the warmth also is just like, the opposite of the cold that we talked about, so those temperature variations. But
Yeah.
nature is just full of it.
Yeah.
So,
I know.
yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I need to let my mom hear this one because she used to get on me for, I always played with fire when I was a kid and look at it and burn the house down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I still to this day love, like, just striking a match anywhere I go, and I don't smoke, but I carry a lighter sometimes because I just want to see the fire.
You just like fire.
You're drawn to it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
There's
don't
something
know,
about
man.
fire. It's kind of cool.
There is.
Yeah, kids,
Yeah. But,
all the kids that listen to our podcast. This is not permission.
yes.
Let's talk about the how nature can be used, like, therapeutically for healing and growth.
One of the things that I think is huge in the therapy world that us therapists can never count on is free moral agency. Somebody is walking around and they make discoveries that we never would have predicted or hypothesized. It didn't fit in our model. We know we're giving good practice. We know we're seeing them realize something. But if someone's out in nature, something may make a difference in a way that we just couldn't determine.
Sure.
And so the thing about nature, I think, that's so therapeutic is in our systems theory that we do with our own profession, we often talk about the difference that makes a difference, right?
Right.
And so nature in some ways is so full of surprises, it could be possessive of that difference that makes a difference in a way we never could discover. And so
Yeah.
integrating that with our therapy, I think, is really important. And I'll show you a couple of things that are going on out in nature, like leaves. There's fractal patterns, and if somebody just picks up a leaf, what they're going to see is all those patterns. Well, we know we deal with parents who doubt themselves all of the time, and a lot of times we may just provide information like, this is what adolescence always is, and you're not alone. But the fractal patterns will show that equifinality, meaning we're all going to end up in the same place, or multifinality, if you flip it over, my kid is not going to be like the kid next door, or, those things. So I think the discovery independently is very therapeutic, and so making sure we're thinking about nature, but also asking our clients, how is it that they experience nature, and what was meaningful to them about that, and helping create our interventions, that hit that sweet spot that means more to them than some other things. So,
Right.
Yeah. I like that. I'm thinking of a leaf pattern right now as you speak.
Yeah. I know personally, like, when I, quote unquote, went through my midlife crisis, which was a long, long time ago. But one of the things that happened to me in my, I would even say transformation process, is I started to really feel one with nature. Like, and so a lot of things like, I still, if there's a spider in my house, it's going to get killed because it shouldn't be in there. It should know better. I think most people would agree. Not everybody.
I disagree.
I try to carry him
I don't
outside.
kill the bugs. I take them out. Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah.
No, you're a better person than me.
Yeah.
I thought I was a
I mean,
pretty good.
I'm
I
lost.
thought I was a pretty good person about what I was going to say, but you're
Okay,
you're
sorry.
way better.
I didn't mean to take
No,
the
you're great.
wind out
It's
of your
great.
sails.
But when used to, the kids could be outside and see like a June bug or something and stomp it or something. I'm not going to say a word about. Do not let them do that anymore. I'm like, look, man, like leave them alone.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I want to be left alone. Maybe that's what it is. Just
Maybe,
leave
yeah,
them
yeah,
alone.
yeah.
Like they're just doing their thing. Leave them alone.
Yep.
There's no sense in doing that. And like I said, it comes inside the house. My morality can get a little shifty.
Fear kicks in.
Yeah, but I even like I've spent time just with my animals, and just how dogs just look at you and just stare at you like into your eyes, like into your soul, like.
Yes.
And I'll just do it back, just like, what connection are we having right now? Like what is it? Sometimes I wonder, like, what do they know that we don't know? Because when my dog passed away, my first dog that we ever had, like this was big for me in terms of like trying to understand, in like processing life and death. Because I was there with him when we put him down, and I felt like he knew something I didn't. Like he had some kind of peace about it. Like he knew it. I think he knew it was happening. But it was like he just wanted to be in my lap. And I remember going after, a little bit of grief on my own, telling my wife, I was like, I want to go out like that. Like I want to be okay with it.
Yeah.
It's like so I don't know, It's interesting.
Well, nature is, animals are part of nature. Animals are very loyal. Nature is very steadfast,
Right.
and so I do think that sometimes there's nothing to claw back at us. There's
Right.
nothing that, we're not going to get into an escalation with a dog or a tree or those kinds of things. And I think there are so many ways that you can integrate. Some people are specifically, they do therapy through nature, and that is all they do. There's a place here, there's some people in Oklahoma that are affiliated. It's called Bounce Travel, but basically it's groups, and they go travel and they hike and they just process and develop themselves through those experiences together. And so there are some unique, specific outdoor therapeutic. There's outdoor therapists. There's certainly ropes course people, but there are people who the exploration and that recreation or renewal of themselves. You talked about kind of transforming peace. Having outdoors as the piece that's the backdrop for that, I think is the key for them in their work.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And as an opportunity for healing and growth, I think that's kind of that prescription of go take a forest bath, and growth and regrowth and flexibility and change in your mind is going to be connected to all of your senses in that forest bath, right? I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. So moving along with the third point that we were going to talk about, which is how the digital world can interfere. And I don't know if the digital world can help any, but I think we can imagine how, in this age that we live in, how we can kind of become couch potatoes or sucked into the video games or TV or our screens, and then we get sad. And we're like, you mean my screen doesn't give me vitamin D? Like what's going on here, right? So what are your thoughts on that, Kelly?
Well, I learned when I used to teach medicine residents that 15 minutes in the sun is all the vitamin D you need for a day.
Really?
That's right. So you don't have to take vitamins. You just be in the sun. Just soak it in.
it in.
Speaking of vitamin D,
Yeah.
one of the things that I think I always try, I didn't used to do this, I was more dichotomous, I think, in my choices, but I was like yes or no. But I think there could be a little space for both and with technology. Technology would, of course, assist us to find places we didn't even know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like the state parks of Oklahoma, there are a lot more than I thought there were, you know, out there. And what amenities do they have? And what experiences could I have? And, you know, so in some ways, technology might help lead us to a very healing spaces. I also know now my new iPhone, I'm out in the mountains. It's where I live in southeastern Oklahoma, and I'm in the Kiamichi Mountains, and I'm taking my phone with me a little bit because I'm like, I don't know what that plant is. What is that plant? And so I take a picture and you can hit the information and it just pops up and it tells you what the plant
Amazing.
is. And so I'm learning and I'm so excited about that learning, but then I'm still touching it and wondering if I can take some home, you know, that kind of thing. But so I do think there's some positive pieces. I
Yeah.
will say though, screen time technology, the piles of, let's just talk about mountains again, mountains of detrimental effects, you
Yeah.
know, with staying in a world that you're not creating, you know, you're not discovering, you're not, you know, fully interacting with. I was treating a child just 2 weeks ago, and he was so anxious. He kept saying, I'm worried about my iPad. I need to go check on my iPad, you know." And he was just like probably every 5 minutes wanting to go check on his iPad. He was worried about it. And so I do think that we're at a crossroads where we have to realize, I was just reading this quote, there's so many new things that have been created in our world, skyscrapers, architectural designs, because of being out in nature. It's because we get new ideas, and a lot of times screen time just closes our world down.
Right.
So, and
Yeah.
stops our bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want the opposite of that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. My daughter is 9 and she loves to do those like would you rather questions. And one of her favorite one to ask is would you rather give up nature or give up technology? Right? And she loves to hear people's answers. It matters very much to her what you say.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, she knows the answer is nature, right? She knows that's the right answer, right? But she's very attuned to that, right? And so I think a lot of times thinking about your client too about, you know, a childhood is all about teaching. It takes us a long time, right, as a species to be ready, right, to lead our own lives. And we're not going to be able to learn all those things through that one-dimensional experience on the screen, right? And
Yeah.
just as a parent, when my kids are out with peers or outside, they're just easier to be around than when
Yeah.
they've even been on screens, right?
Yeah.
And so just anecdotal
true.
data that is in your face every day as a family, right? About, well, I know in my house what we're going to choose if would you rather ever becomes reality,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I was thinking just the other day. I'm, you know, Carrie, you're a baseball parent. I'm a baseball parent, and I'm one of those parents that I will take a video of my kid every time he gets up to bat. Like and part of that too is because, you know, I do love technology. I love digital technology. I like to create on that, and so like I'll take those videos. Like I'm wanting to capture something amazing, and then if I do, I'll try to, you know, make it a fun video. But this is actually just this last game that my son was in playing in. He'd already had been up to bat twice, and I videotaped those, we have videoed those, and then
I still stay
you say
videotape too.
videotape. Sorry.
Yeah, I always say that.
There's no tape anymore. And then for his last time up, I looked at the dad next to me. I was like, "Hey, because by golly, I was going to get it on video." I looked at him. I was like, would you video this for me? Would you take I handed him my phone. I was like, because I want to just watch him. You know, like it's not the same.
It's not.
Because the moment I look up to watch him, my hands go down. And but I think, you know, the screen definitely can interfere. You know, it can offer, like you said, it's more of a both and thing, which is spoken like a true therapist. You know, like it's not either or, it's both and.
Right.
How do you make digital technology work for you to enhance your experiences, but obviously, like, you got to strike a balance there because it can definitely get in the way at the same time.
Yeah. If I had to say my gut on everything I've read, it's just that screens technology seems to limit sometimes,
Yeah.
even though we think, it expands, it helps us be productive, but nature expands,
Yeah,
and so
you're
it's kind of
100%.
the difference between
Yeah.
limiting
Yeah.
and expanding in
No,
some
and I
ways.
think
That's a great way to
the cell phone recordings is a good example of that, because I can put that baseball field on a
Yeah.
tiny little screen. I can get
Yes.
the whole field
I know.
in this
Yeah.
little tiny box.
Yeah.
As you talk, so you're 100% right. But there's something different about being there.
Yeah.
And the other thing I do when I'm editing is I go and I play with the colors and the saturations, because what I'm seeing is not what's being captured on my camera.
Yeah.
And so I change the colors to try to make it capture what I actually saw.
Yeah.
Because what I'm seeing is way more beautiful than. And there's nothing more beautiful, by the way, being on a baseball field. Do you have that in your notes? Like the
Yeah,
baseball
there's gotta
diamond?
be research about baseball, and I was thinking about
Sure.
just my experience of sitting out in one of the are they called stadiums? I want to make sure that I
Stadiums,
Yeah.
parks.
parks.
Yeah.
I was, you were talking about this, and I was thinking, just sitting outside, watching like the sunset and the lights come on and the bugs get there, and listening to the noises, and everything about a baseball experience is, I mean, there's a lot of creativity going on in there too,
Yeah.
and lots of visceral.
Yeah. Oh
Yes.
yeah. Right. Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
All right, so relational benefits. And again, I don't think it's a stretch to imagine how being out in nature can have relational benefits. I think people naturally gravitate toward it.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you want to go? Like, everybody wants to go out in nature. Whenever my wife and I are thinking about something to do or take the kids somewhere or something like that, very rarely we're thinking like a metropolitan area. It's like sometimes we will. Let's go. Like, we'll go to New York City because you got to go to New York City at least once
Sure.
Yeah.
in your life. But most of the time, it's toward the water. So.
Well, a lot of families, especially I would say in Oklahoma or other, large rural area states, they have lots of traditions with nature. Some of them are, hunters or fishers, and so relationally it becomes a family affair, when, you think, okay, we're going to go get worms and we're going to go on a lake and we're going to, all fish together, and then we're going to have the adrenaline of maybe catching something, and, and seeing different kinds of discoveries and sharing with them. And so the prompt of nature gives you a limitless sharing capacity. It's just lovely out there because everybody, you've got 5, 6, whoever is with you, the perspectives, and you get to share. Did you see this? Do you see this? My husband and I do this all the time as a couple. Just the other day, we saw the first hummingbird. I got to see the first hummingbird, and I could hear his voice. He was like, I was like, hey, come here. And he goes, what? And I said, out there on the feeder. He goes, oh, is it a hummingbird? And as soon as he knew the topic, he's all,
Engaged.
diving in, and he like ran over there, and we were sharing about how is it that they chose that one instead of that one, or and we really bond through birds. I'm telling you, we are just such birders, and so
So they're amazing in and of themselves. So
They are.
They fly backwards.
They
What's
are.
wrong with them?
But I will say that just like we talked about in gardening, where you're discovering and you're creating and you're growing and you're sharing, I think many times as humans, we're compelled to share joyful experiences.
Yes.
And when we don't have those because we're limiting ourselves, or we have some kind of rote rituals that we're kind of just a grind every single day, we're not compelled to share, oh, I had the same day that I did yesterday,
Right.
or I had the same experience that I did,
Yeah.
or, oh, I sat in my chair and watched TV again, or, those kinds of things. That's not joyful. It's just something, And so I do think that that compulsive just desire to share is certainly stimulated by nature.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. I check the
You're-
garden every day. I think it goes a quarter inch that those carrots are starting to come up more, right? I mean, it's just
Yes.
what you do, and you give a report. Or you
Yeah.
ask the 9-year-old, go look, right? Any weeds? How many did you pull,
Yeah.
right? It's a connection ritual. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, you're like, so if your husband showed up with a bunch of gardening stuff for you to plant, it's like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just looking out for our relationship, babe.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Yeah.
Don't worry, you've been married 40 years.
That's right.
He,
Yeah.
he shows up every summer like, hey, this is our marriage counseling for the year. Get out.
Here it is, plants, dirt, yeah.
I know.
I'm going to sit in the sun,
He,
soak up some vitamin D while you
Vitamin
garden.
D.
I will say it's the arrow right to my heart. If it has
Yeah.
something to do, I mean, he was like, okay, let's go get your raised beds. Let's go get a
Yeah.
load of dirt. And I'm like, I love you,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah. Cartoon hearts everywhere.
Yeah,
That's Boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom.
That's right.
Well, this is such a lighthearted. I'm so glad we did this.
I know,
this
it's
this
lovely.
episode we've done a lot of really heavy topics lately, and so this was really fun to do. And I appreciate you coming to do it. I do have a question for you guys, for both of you, because I was reading a book recently. It's actually about music and mental health, and and I'll post it and I'll link it for everybody. But it's on our website. And he was talking about something that we've all heard, and I didn't really know there was an actual answer to the question. And the question is, when a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to see it fall, did it make a sound?
Are you reading? I heard there was a secret course.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I read it. It's great. Have you read
It's
it?
I'm almost done with it, and
Yeah.
I'm doing a book club with it because it's fascinating book. Oh my gosh, it's so
Yeah.
good.
Well, you can't answer this question.
No, I'm
You
not
know
gonna
the
answer it.
I
I do
listened
know
to
the
the
answer.
author
So-
talk about the book, but I don't think I know the
Well,
answer.
I mean, there is a scientific answer. I know there might be, philosophical answers too, like,
Right,
or,
right.
therapeutic type answers. But what would you say? Because I got it wrong.
Does it make a sound is the question?
Yeah, does it make a sound?
Yes, right?
That's what I would have
Right,
said, but
but
that's
no?
no, it doesn't.
Okay.
It will
Is
create.
this the scientific answer you're about to give me?
Yes.
Okay.
And you tell me if I'm wrong, Kelly, because if I'm remembering it correctly. But it makes the vibrations for sound, but in order for it to be a sound, it has to enter into the ear,
Okay.
where
And
sound
listening
is,
device.
so where the vibrations hit, and then sound is created. So you can't have sound without somebody there to hear it.
So it's a
you know?
two-stepper,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Yeah. So the
Yes.
vibrations are present for sound, but it doesn't make a sound.
Okay.
I
there
thought
you
I
go.
was like,
I've only heard that in the philosophical context. I've
Yeah,
never
yeah.
really thought about the literal
yeah,
definition.
I never.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really even tried to answer because I thought there just wasn't one.
Oh, I just went straight to
I was like, yes, it makes a sound.
philosophy.
You know, there are a lot of sounds in nature, and I will just say that he even talks a little bit about, the bird songs and some
Yeah,
other
yeah.
kinds of things. But a sound is a whole extra new, wonderful topic, and I hope that you guys can cover that sometime too.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
yeah, we should do that.
Yeah,
We have you back for it.
that's right.
I'm ready for that. Well,
Yeah.
I'm 2/3 ready for it.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, and appreciate everybody that has tuned in, and hope you found benefit in the things that we talk about and the content that we make. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. Again, if you're listening to this on the podcast and you made it all the way through, so you might as well go give us that 5-star review. And we have a lot more plans for this year and bringing some guests back, and getting some new guests. And so we're so glad that you came back. If you haven't seen the first one we did, which we talked about the benefits of working with therapists that are still training to be therapists, so the newbies. And that it might not be as scary of an endeavor. It might be quite beneficial. Because I remember when we were new, and I thought we did good therapy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe I didn't. I don't know. So, anyways, but appreciate everybody, and we'll see you back next time.